Welcome to Rules Challenge. My name is Carter Maxwell, and in this episode we're going to be looking at the game Ark Nova. Now, for those of you who are new to the show, it's basically just a test of your understanding of the rules of the game. It'll be like you're watching a real three-player game being played, but every turn I give it a number, and at the end of the turn I stop and ask legal or illegal. And then I answer the question and give some explanation. Now, in addition to being a test, I do focus on the sorts of things that people misunderstand about the rules or simply tend to forget, so it also functions somewhat like an FAQ. Before we get started on the rules challenge, I would like to offer a couple tips for people who might be getting ready for their first play of the game. The first would be make sure you read the glossary in addition to the regular rule book. I ignored it before my first play, just thinking, if I have a question about a card or something, I'll check it out. But there's essential information in here. You've got the golden rules, you've got conservation project clarifications, information about the animal abilities, and some of these things I don't think you'd want to play without being familiar with some of the more complex animal abilities like hypnosis and pilfering and venom. So make sure you check this out. Not necessarily the entire thing, but I think about the first 4 pages is really useful to be familiar with all the concepts they go over in here. And then just a couple things about how I'm playing the game here. One is I do keep the discard pile face down. The designer has mentioned that the discard pile was meant to be non-public information all along. The only reason he gave people the option of keeping it face up is so they didn't mix it up with the draw pile. So I keep it face down here, so that's how you'll see it during the video. And the other thing is, all the players are using the same map 0. None of those have any special abilities, so you don't have to worry about whether there's something going on in the background. Everything you need to decide if something was legal or illegal will be on the screen in front of you. All right, with that, I think we're ready to get started. For Yellow's turn, she has an upgraded association card in the 5 slot, so she'll go ahead and do an association action at strength 5. She wants to support a conservation project, so she'll take a worker from her notepad and put it on that space of the association board. She wants to do the Africa project, so she'll count up how many Africa icons she has in her zoo. She has 3 from card icons and 1 from a partner zoo for a total of 4. To mark that, she'll take a player token from her zoo map and put it on the 4 space of the card. For clearing out that space, she'll take an immediate bonus of a 2-space enclosure. And she'll put that down here adjacent to this occupied 4-space enclosure. And then she needs to gain those 3 conservation points. So she'll mark those, 1, 2, 3. And she gets to take a bonus for passing this space, and she'll go ahead and take the gain a worker bonus. So she'll move her bottommost worker up to the notepad. Then, since she had an upgraded association card, she also gets to make a donation, and every spot is open right now, so she'll go ahead and take the cheapest one, which will just cost her 2 money. So she'll pay that. Then she'll use the cube from her 5 money bonus to mark the donation. She'll gain the 5 money for the bonus, and she'll mark the 1 conservation point for the donation. And then to wrap up her turn, she'll move the association card down to the number 1 slot. Yellow only did one thing wrong here, but there was a couple other things that might have looked illegal, and I want to talk about those first. When Yellow counted up the Africa icons in her zoo, she counted the partner zoo as an icon for the 4th one. And that's correct. That's something I didn't even pick up on until about my 3rd play of the game, that those partner zoo icons count as icons just like at the top of your cards. It works toward meeting requirements on animal cards. Say if you're trying to play Grevy Zebra, which requires Africa icons. It would trigger effects. Like on the Expert on Africa card, which gives you a bonus when you add an Africa icon to your zoo. And it works the way Yellow used it here as an icon toward meeting the Africa Conservation Project requirement. I also wanted to point out that it was okay that Yellow took an immediate 2 space enclosure bonus when she cleared this space. When I first played the game, I just kind of looked at the purple and thought that was just for income during the break. But notice the graphic over here. This is telling you that you get it as an immediate bonus and then also during the income phase of the breaks. And here's what Yellow did wrong. When she marked that donation space with a cube, it should not have come from her zoo map. Those are for marking conservation projects. When you're marking a donation, that cube should come from your general supply. All right, moving on to Red. He's going to do a build at strength 3, so we'll slide that down. He'll start off by building a pavilion right here. And that's just a one-space enclosure, so that'll cost 2 money. And he'll immediately gain 1 appeal for that. Then he'll build a one-space standard enclosure, and again, that'll cost 2 money. Then, using up his final strength point of the build, he'll build a kiosk. That'll cost another 2. And he'll move the build card down to the 1 slot. Red did everything correctly on this turn, but there were some things I wanted to highlight. The main one is the upgraded side of the card says you can build 1 or more different buildings, but that doesn't mean they have to be different sizes. It just means they can't be identical. So it was okay that Red built a one-space kiosk, a one-space pavilion, a one-space standard enclosure. They all count as different buildings even though they happen to be the same size. Another thing was just a reminder that there should always be 2 spaces between your kiosk, which Red did correctly. And then the last one is super basic, but I mess it up all the time. Make sure when you're building your standard enclosures that you're putting them with the unoccupied side facing up. I've found that storing them with the unoccupied side facing up helps reduce that mistake. Moving on to Black's turn. He's going to do an upgraded build action at a strength of 5. He wants to build the large bird aviary, which is a 5-space enclosure, so that'll cost 10. He'll pay that. He'll place it so it's adjacent to this enclosure, and so it covers up this bonus where you can either draw a card or take one from within reputation range. He'll just draw a card and add it to his hand. He'll move his Andean condor to the aviary, and that just takes up 1 space, so he'll take a cube from supply and put it in the aviary. And now he has to flip over an occupied enclosure that met the bird's requirements, which was 5 spaces and next to rock. He only has 1 of those, so he'll flip over this enclosure. And he'll move the build card down to the 1 slot to wrap up the turn. The mistake Black made was he put the Andean condor into an aviary that was not adjacent to a rock, even though the bird requires being adjacent to at least 1 rock. Whether you're putting a bird into an aviary or a reptile into a reptile house, it doesn't just automatically go in there. You still have to make sure that new enclosure meets all the animal's requirements. All right, now we've come back around to Yellow, and she'll play a Strength 5 Animals card that hasn't been upgraded. Yellow wants to play a couple animals with this action. She's going to start out with the Northern Plains Gray Langur. First, she'll check she meets the prerequisites. There aren't any, so she's fine there. She does not get any kind of discount, so she'll pay the full 13. So she'll pay that. Now she has to turn over at least a 3-space enclosure next to at least 1 rock. And she has 1 of those. She'll add the Langur to her zoo and resolve its effects. First off, she'll gain 6 appeal. That'll move her from 14 to 20. Then the card says, advance the break token 3 spaces and gain 3 money. So she'll advance the break token, 1, 2, 3, and she'll gain 3 money. Next, she'll play the Stoat. That has a prerequisite of having a Europe icon in her zoo. And she'll meet that with the European Partner Zoo icon. Also, because she has that European Partner Zoo, that'll give her a 3 money discount, so she'll pay 1 instead of 4. Then she needs to flip over at least a 1 space enclosure with no other special requirements. So she'll flip over this one here. So she'll add the stoat to her zoo. And now she gets to gain 3 appeal. 1, 2, 3. Then the stoat card says, reveal the topmost card of the deck. If it is an animal card, add it to your hand. Otherwise, discard it. So she'll draw a card, and it is an animal, so she'll add it to her hand. And then to wrap up her turn, she'll move the animal's card to the 1 slot. Everything Yellow did on that turn was legal. A couple of things I wanted to mention. She took that 3 money discount for the European Zoo. Remember, on those rare animals that have 2 icons, if you have the matching partner zoo, you get a double discount. So like the European bison, for having that partner zoo, the discount would be 6, not just 3. Another thing I need to comment on at some point, just because questions come up about it a lot, is whether or not this European symbol on the left side here counts as a quote-unquote icon for other gameplay purposes. No, it is just a requirement for playing the card. It doesn't count toward triggering bonuses or meeting animal requirements or contributing to conservation projects. All right, moving on to Red's turn. He's going to do a sponsor's action at Strength 5. And he'll play the level 5 Expert on Asia card into his zoo. That card gives an immediate 1 appeal for every Asia icon in his zoo. He'll do a quick check. He doesn't have the Asia Partner Zoo, and the only card he has with an Asia icon is the Expert on Asia, so it's just 1. So he'll gain 1 appeal. And the card has an effect that says each time you play an Asia icon into your zoo, you may build 1 pavilion for free. So he did just play an Asia icon into his zoo. So he'll place this pavilion here next to his kiosk. That's going to cover up this bonus that allows you to either draw a card from the deck or up to your reputation from the display. Red has several options because his reputation's up at the 4th level of the display. He'll go ahead and take this Eurasian eagle owl. And then because he had just placed a pavilion, he gets to score 1 more appeal. To wrap up his turn, he'll move the sponsor's card to the 1 slot. And since Red's turn is done, we'll go ahead and refill the display. The thing that I think was worth highlighting on this turn is that when you play a sponsor card that has an effect triggered by a certain icon, the icon on the sponsor card itself also triggers the effect. Since the Expert on Asia had the Asia icon right on it, that triggers the effect. Not only the one for the gaining appeal immediately, but also for when you play an Asia icon into your zoo. So Red was able to gain an appeal for that icon and put a pavilion into a zoo for free because of that icon. Now it's Black's turn. He wants to do an association action on the non-upgraded side, and that'll be Strength 5. He'll take a worker. He'll place the worker on the Support a Conservation Project space, and he wants to support the bird breeding program, so that'll require a bird and a matching partner zoo. He definitely has the bird, the Andean condor. It's from, I'm not sure what we're calling that, the Americas, I'll go with. And he has the matching partner zoo. Now he needs to mark the conservation project card with one of his cubes. He'll take it from this one for gaining a worker, and he'll gain that bonus worker. Black needs to mark the card, and he'll go ahead and choose the 2 conservation point option. We'll peg those 2 points, 1, 2, and since he passed this bonus marker, he gets to choose one, and he'll go with the university. He has his pick, so he'll take the one that'll increase his hand limit and give him 1 reputation point. He'll mark the reputation point. He'll add it to his zoo, and that's going to cover up the bonus that allows him to upgrade a card. And he'll use that bonus to upgrade his association card. Black's going to take advantage now of being on the pink side of the association card to make one donation. The lowest cost space available is 5 monies, so he'll pay that. And he'll mark it with a cube from his supply. He'll mark that conservation point and finish his turn by moving the association card to the number 1 slot. There was a lot going on that turn, and Black did everything right except making a donation the same action that he upgraded the association card. Per the rulebook and the FAQ, upon upgrading an action card, starting with your next action, you can use that action card to perform an improved version of the action for the rest of the game. So that turn, Black had started on the blue side, upgraded it during that action, so didn't have access to these extra abilities on the upgraded side. The next action he takes with that card, though, he will. Alright, back to yellow. She'll do a strength 5 cards action. To start with, she has to advance the break token 2 spaces. 1, 2. Then she can either draw 3 and discard 1 or snap. She'll opt to snap the South American coatl from the 6th space of the display. She'll add the coatl to her hand and then slide the card down to the number 1 slot to wrap up her turn. And we'll refill the display before moving on to the next player. Everything yellow did on that turn was right. Occasionally you'll see people mix up the snap rule with the rules about drawing cards up to your reputation. But snapping isn't related to your reputation range. You can snap a card from any of the 6 slots on the display. So yellow wasn't limited to, since she was on the 3rd level of display, she wasn't limited to cards from one of these 3 spots. She could take it from any of these 6. So she took the coatl from the 6th spot. I'm going to skip showing you Red's turn and move on to Black. He's going to do a strength 5 cards action on the side 1 of the cards. So he'll slide that down. And he'll start off by advancing the break token 2 steps. 1, 2. Since this action is at strength 5, Black could snap, but instead he's going to draw 3 cards and discard 1. So he'll draw 3. Galapagos Giant Tortoise, Tasmanian Devil, and a Meerkat Den. He's going to add those new cards to his hand and get rid of Science Museum from his existing hand, which he's not that hopeful of ever getting played. He'll discard that Science Museum card and then wrap up his turn by sliding cards to the number 1 slot. That was a pretty simple turn, but there's still some things worth commenting on. One is, if you're doing side 1 of the cards action, remember that drawing just comes from the deck. It's not until you get to side 2 that it gives you the option of drawing within reputation range. Another thing worth pointing out is, I wouldn't expect people to notice this, but Black had 6 cards still in his hand after he discarded and finished his turn. Sometimes people will see that and say, oh wait, he's over his hand limit of 5. He should have discarded down to 5 at the end of his turn, because they're used to that in other games. But in Ark Nova, you don't have to worry about having too many cards at the start of your turn or end of your turn. The only time you have to get down to your hand limit is during a break. Another thing I wanted to comment on, you might have noticed that Black kept all 3 of the cards he drew and discarded 1 from his hand instead. And that's fine. You do, with that strength 5 action, you do have to discard 1 card, but it doesn't have to be one of the ones you just drew. It can be anything from your hand. Moving on to yellow's turn, she's going to take a strength 4 sponsors action on side 2 of the card. She's going to take the first option, which allows her to play sponsor cards from her hand or from within reputation range. Her reputation's at level 3 right now. She wants this zoo school from the first slot. She'll pay 1 so she can play that card. So she'll take it from the display and play it into her zoo. Resolving the effects, she gets to gain 1 reputation. Then she gets to place a special building, and it says place on at least 2 border spaces. She'll place it up here adjacent to this 3-space enclosure and cover this X token bonus. And she'll grab that X token. Then she can get the bonus for taking a card from the deck or within reputation range. Her reputation's up to the 4th level of the display, so she'll take advantage of that and grab this Explorer card. And then for the last effect of the card, she gets to gain 1 conservation point. We'll mark that. That gets her up to the bonus, so she can either take 5 money or take this bonus where she can play a sponsor card. She'll go ahead and take that one. This is a bonus where I usually have to double check the icon overview. And that says, you may play a sponsor card from your hand by paying X money, where X is the level of the card. Yellow wants to play this Explorer card she just took from the display. She'll double check the prerequisites. That requires an upgraded sponsors card, which she has, which she's actually using right now. And then it's a level 5 card, so it'll cost her 5 money. She'll pay that. So she'll put the card into her zoo. Then to resolve the effects, gain 2 money for each different continent or animal category icon in your zoo. Yellow has a lot of them, so let's count them up. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's a duplicate. Duplicate. 6, 7. Duplicate. 8. The partner zoos are duplicates, so her total is 8. That'll get her 16 money. 15, 16. And then to finish resolving the effects of the card, it says, each time you gain a continent or animal category icon that is not yet in your zoo, gain 1 appeal and 2 money. This might have been activated by this card, but it actually doesn't have any new icons on it that Yellow doesn't have in her zoo, so she doesn't get any further benefits at this time. So to wrap up her turn, she'll move that sponsors card to slot 1, and we'll refill the display. The main thing I wanted to show in this example is how Yellow had resolved the effects of the zoo school in whatever order she wanted. That's laid out pretty clearly in the golden rules section of the glossary. It says, if multiple bonuses and or effects occur at the same time, you may execute them in any order you choose. In fact, I was a little annoyed because I thought the zoo school was such a great way to demonstrate this, and then it turns out in the glossary they use the exact same card to demonstrate it. Sometimes people will interpret the yellow immediate effect as being the one you have to resolve first, but no, the order is up to you. Another thing I've seen people question is whether or not you have to pay when you place these special buildings. So they'll look at somebody place a special enclosure like this and say, well, that's a 3-space enclosure, so you have to pay 6. But no, that's not the case when it's a special building that comes with a sponsor card. Last thing I want to point out is that Yellow did pay the correct amount when playing the Explorer card with this bonus. Sometimes people will be under the impression that you're paying for the level of your sponsor card, which happened to be at 4 on this action. But no, you're paying for the level of the card you're playing, which was 5, so Yellow paid 5 money. It's Red's turn, and he's going to take a Strength 5 association action on side 1 of the card. He'll take a worker from his notepad, and he'll put it on level 5 of the association board. He wants to support the Sea Cave Conservation Project. And that will require releasing 1 reptile into the wild. We need to make sure that Red even has an eligible reptile to release. And he's got the Gould's Monitor right here. Red has to lose 6 appeal for releasing the Gould's Monitor. So we'll mark that, moving him from 27 to 21. Now, since he released the Gould's Monitor, Red needs to turn an enclosure over to its unoccupied side, so he'll take this 3-space enclosure here and flip it over. He'll discard the animal. He'll take a cube from his zoo map to mark the conservation project. We need to mark the one conservation point that Red gained from the bonus for moving the cube off the zoo map. The reptile he released required a 3-space enclosure, but unfortunately Black already claimed that spot, so Red will just have to settle for the 2 or less size enclosure, which will give him 3 conservation points. 1, 2, 3. And the only bonus available now is 5 money, so he'll go ahead and take that. And to wrap up his turn, he'll move the association card down to the 1 slot. That move is illegal because Red released an animal of the wrong size enclosure for the space he was claiming on the conservation project. Page 1 of the glossary specifies that you may not release an animal that is smaller or larger than indicated for the condition you are fulfilling. It's an easy mistake to make because we get used to having flexibility when we're placing an animal into an enclosure that it can go in an enclosure larger, but we don't have that flexibility when we're releasing an animal into the wild. It has to be exactly the size indicated. So to claim this space, it would have to be an animal that requires a 2 or 1 size enclosure. For this one, it has to be exactly 3, and for this one, it has to be a 4 or a 5. For Black's turn, he wants to do a Strength 5 Animals action on side 1 of the card. So he'll slide that down, and that will allow him to play up to 2 animals, but he's just going to play 1 on this turn. He'll play the African spurred tortoise from his hand. First, checking for any requirements, we see there aren't any. Then he has to pay the 22 cost. He does have an Africa partner zoo though, so that'll reduce it to 19, so he'll pay that. He'll pay 20 and get back 1. Then he needs to turn over a 3-space enclosure with no special requirements. He has 2 possibilities, a 5 and a 3 that are unoccupied. Obviously he'll go with the 3, so we'll turn that over. And then he'll move the animal card into his zoo. Then resolving the effects, he gets to gain 6 appeal and 1 conservation point. So we'll mark the appeal from 14 to 20. And on the conservation track, he'll move from 7 to 8. And that'll gain him a bonus of his choice here. And he'll take the partner zoo bonus. All 5 of the partner zoos are still available, but he already has the Americas and Africa, so he'll go with Asia. So he'll put that partner zoo on his board, and covering that space will trigger a bonus for an extra worker. So he'll put that in place and move a worker up to his notepad. There's one more effect of the tortoise card to resolve, and that's Sunbathing 3. You may sell up to 3 cards from your hand for 4 money each. Black is really low on money, so he's going to take advantage of that to sell the Meerkat Den and the Tasmanian Devil. He'll discard those 2 cards, and he'll gain 4 money for each of those cards for a total of 8, so he'll take a 10 and put back 2. And then finishing up his turn, he'll move animals to the number 1 slot. Everything Black did on that turn was correct, but there are a couple things I want to highlight. One is, when he put this partner zoo into here, he was eligible to do that because he had upgraded his association card to side 2, which unlocked the top 2 spaces for partner zoos. Sometimes though, people will think that if you gain the partner zoo from a bonus, you don't necessarily have to have unlocked that and you get to place it anyway. But that's not the case. Regardless of how you obtain this partner zoo, you have to have unlocked it by upgrading your association card. Another thing is, Black had obtained that partner zoo by claiming this bonus, and sometimes people will think, well, if it's being claimed from a bonus, it can come from supply, not necessarily from the association board, but that's not the case either. So if the one you want doesn't happen to still be on the association board, that means you'll have to pick something different. You can't reach out to the supply to get one that doesn't happen to be available here. A couple general questions I see come up about the bonus tokens is, what happens to them after you use them? One question is, Do they stay on the board or do they come off? Unlike these pre-printed ones which stay available for everyone to use, when you use one of these markers, you remove it from the board and it's no longer available for anyone else. And then another question that comes up is, okay, I've removed the token, now what do I do with it? And the rules actually don't specify what to do with it. I like to put the bonus tokens into the play area of the player who took them. It's not a big deal, but I find, especially in your first few plays of the game, that it's useful to have some extra information about how you acquired your pieces so that, if you think you made a mistake, you can kind of double check it and audit the game state. We're going to skip over yellow's turn and move on to red. For red's turn, he's going to do a build action on side 2 of the build card at strength 4, and then he's going to spend an X token to make it strength 5. Red wants to start off by building a 4-space enclosure, so that'll cost all 8 of his remaining money. And then he'll put that 4-space enclosure adjacent to his penguin pool, and that's going to cover up this 5 money bonus. So he'll gain that 5 money. Then he wants to build a 1-space enclosure. That'll cost 2 money. So he'll spend the 5 and get back 3. And he'll put that 1-space enclosure over by his kiosk. And to wrap things up, he'll move that build card over to the 1 slot. That move is legal. When you're building multiple enclosures with a build action, you pay for each enclosure separately as it's placed. So you can use money gained from placing one to pay for the next one you build. Well, this looks like a good place to wrap up the video. I hope you got something out of it. If you think I did something wrong, which certainly happens, or you just have a question about something in the video, don't hesitate to leave a comment. I've always got a couple videos in the works, so if you want to catch more of these in the future, be sure to subscribe. Again, I'm Carter Maxwell. This has been Rules Challenge, and I'll see you soon.